Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from PowerSonic and Apprentice 1-to-1. I'm holding on to the camera stand because it is very windy. But you'll see behind me we've got another solar array up and running, combined with battery storage and an EV charger. I'm going to run through the entire install on this video with you. But before we get into all of that, I just want to say if you're a consumer and you're looking for a proposal or quotation for a solar PV, battery storage system, EV charge point or general electrical work, our contact details can be found in the description below, and it would be an absolute pleasure to offer our services to you. Also want to thank Mike from East Renewables who came out on this one to help us. Needed another sterling job, as you will see with the guys on the roof through the course of this video. And to our customers, Julian and Samantha, who've looked after us with teas, coffees, food and snacks galore. It's absolutely amazing. I don't know if this is something that's just kind of spiraled through YouTube, but every job we seem to go to, we are getting spoilt rotten. So thank you guys. It really does mean a lot and very much appreciated this end. Without further ado, let's get straight on with the video and see how this all came together. So we're going to have the EV charger here. I'll show you that when we're installing it. We'll mark the hole for rear entry. We're going to keep that as neat as we can. Cable route up and across the top, which we'll sort out as well. That'll be a job probably for tomorrow. We'll see how we get on. Nathan might come down and do that actually. Over at the intake, you can see we've got our gateway, an all-in-one that Matthew's starting to pop in place. AC isolators, DNO, cable's just loose in free air, that board's loose, so there's all that to sort when we get our isolation done. And there's a redundant gas pipe that's disconnected but needs bonding, so obviously it's still going into the massive earth and there's currently no bond on it, so we've got that to sort out. Yeah, we'll pick up with that when it's finished. You've seen us do these absolutely loads, but just to look in the gateway, this is again the newer version. You can tell because the buzz bars have the covers on, and also the Wi-Fi, or sorry, the reset button is in the back there on your Ethernet ports rather than up in the top. So that's how you can tell if you've got a new or old gen gateway. So that's all there. Just cabling this up. You see Matthew's got his AC cables in for the PV, which is going on there, and the all-in-one, which is going off there. We're going to have to cable these up just loose fit. We can't get containment around the DNO's supply cable. We're going to have to bridge it one way or another, so we thought it's easier. As we've done before actually, I think it was the job in Solihull where we kept it all out on show and it came up really nice. This should be pretty straightforward because the tails have just got to kind of loop up to the Henley blocks for the consumer units and up to the meter there, so they're not long runs, should be nice and neat. The tails drop down in Copex. We're going to neaten all that up when the inverter goes on, show you that as well later on. We've got our cable for the tap here, so that's bringing the data down from the array. You can see ready to there, so we'll be able to see that. I'll show you the TIGO app as well on this one once it's all commissioned and set up and you can see some of the data that it gives you. And otherwise, we'll pick up with this in a bit. So I thought we'd have a look at the roof layout in Easy PV because sometimes visualising this on the software is a little bit easier than out on site. We have got a fair bit of room left underneath our array. I think it's around a metre, so it's just not quite enough to squeeze another row of panels on. So we've got some, what you might call dead roof space. However, because of the shading, with next door's property, they are quite close up together. I don't think we're going to miss out on that much generation from that. And just to show you with portrait, again, we just couldn't quite get that fourth row in. So even if we was going to go tight around this chimney, we'd have still been a panel down overall. And I don't think we would have actually fit that one in due to the flash-ins around the chimney. And again, we're trying to lift this array as high as we can without interfering with the ridge line on the roof because we're trying to get away from as much of that shading as possible by getting this top row of panels up as high as we could do. And yeah, so we would have been left with 16 in portrait, still not quite enough room to squeeze another one in the bottom. And it's just the shape and size of the roof you're working with and the panel set you're choosing to give you the best output that you can. We've combined these, as you'll see out on site, with the Jinko, with the TIGO optimizers. And we've got the tap on there as well, so we're going to be able to monitor these and see at an individual level how they actually perform, which I think will be really, really interesting. And this customer, super duper keen to get into solar and renewables and start generating their own power. And sometimes with the roof space that you've got, you know, you're just working with what's there. There are plans with this one to go back at a later date when they've put a rear extension on and potentially extend this array onto that because that roof is going to be true south facing. So we might be able to get a bit more production out of the system overall, but it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. We've still got the tail end of summer, so we'll get a good idea of what this is going to generate, certainly in the summer months, and then as the sun drops in the sky, we'll see how it goes over the winter months. But I just thought I'd show you that, because sometimes when you're out on site, you think, oh, actually that'd fit, that wouldn't fit, and it's just the difficulties. And you may have noticed, and again we will cover this out on site, that there's a little chimney here for a stench pipe. That's actually coming out and it's going to live down here in the future anyway, so that wouldn't have been able to take a panel regardless. At the very best, if there was enough space here, we could have maybe squeezed another 3 in, but just a bit too shy on the room. Let's go back to site and take a look at it. So Nathan's just finishing the bird guard at the top, but we've got the panels on. We're just doing the tidying up, a few end caps to go on, a few more extra clips to go on this guard, but I thought I'd quickly show you what we've got, and I think I'm going to show you an easy PV design on this after this section, which will talk about this chimney here, but that's actually coming out, so that's not staying. It's going to come down here because the bathroom's moving. It is for a stench pipe, but we've just worked around it for now, and the bird guard's left long enough to be pulled back out straight once the roof repairs around all that have been done. Yeah, we've got our clips in there ready to just pop a few extra ones in. Scaff needs a good clean down. We've been really busy on this one today. It's quite windy and we've just had to crack on before the weather turns. It's due to absolutely throw it down soon, so we're not as neat and tidy as we normally would be. We've got the Valk bird guard in the middle there. That's just because this stuff is a bit too unruly to get around that square shape very easily, so we went for the Valk because that's in straight segments and it was a bit easier to work with. These again, you just cut and shape it. You see the cut little sections out to get around there, so there's no access for any of the birds, and we're going to go along and push all this into shape a little bit. That's the best way we found to work with this. Once it's clipped up, push it into shape around the tiles as best you can, and then that is that all sorted out. We've got a bit of space down this side, so a little bit less at the other side. I'll take you and show you in a minute, and this space on the bottom, so there's not quite enough for another row in landscape because we're as close to the ridge as we dare really go. We've got it right up there to try and avoid shading off. We've got some trees over on the other side, get my fingers out the way, and there's a little corner of a building here as well next door that I'm not going to show you because it's not their house, not the customer's house. But yeah, it was just to try and lift this up as far as we can to get it in the sun as much as possible. And in doing so, we've ended up with 2 panels missing around the chimney, but that allows good access for anyone who ever has to go in there to do any maintenance. And the shading aspect we'll speak about in a minute as well. This is the space up this side. We have just got the 300, so it's pretty tight. So yeah, if we'd swung them around to portrait, I'll show you on the easy PV design tool, we would have ended up with 2 panels less. So this is why these are in landscape, and for fitters out there, you will know landscape panels, especially 5 rods high, are a pain in the backside. This here, with the chimney, again, if anyone needs to come and work on that, these 2 bottom panels can drop out the way, and there's good space for access into that area. It is kind of landlocked now, so it's not going to be, you're not going to get to that without taking panels out, but it is just the way it is. Getting the extra panels in outweighs the maintenance aspect. And to be fair, it looks in good nick. I don't see it being a problem for a period of time, so that's one for the customer to keep in mind when those maintenance activities are needed. A couple of panels need to drop out, and we've installed them in a way where that won't be too much of a drama. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at really. As I say, we just get this shaped up a bit nicer, clean the panels down. You see we've got a few fingerprints on them. They all need washing down. The rain will probably help us out a bit actually. That's imminently arriving. We'll clean the scaff up. We're coming back tomorrow, so I'll show you the roof array when we're all finished and you can have a proper look at it then. So I thought we'd have a quick run through the apps again on a screen record, and you can see we've got the all-in-one and gateway commissioned, and it is now running through its calibration. So when you first have these systems installed, it's not a case of just turning them on and start using them. There's a couple of little bits and pieces that need doing first. One is a full discharge of the all-in-one. So it empties all of its batteries, covering off any house loads that are in play at the time, and the rest goes out to the grid. That's kind of to help settle all of the batteries. They come in those 4 suitcase modules that you might have seen on earlier content, and then it'll fully recharge them as well, just to make sure they're in optimum working conditions. You can see all of the same data that I've shown before in here is all within the app. So you've got your inverter details, weather forecasts, any tariffs, the EV charger that will appear on this one later on. We get to commission that, and you can get into all of that that data. So with the inverter, you get your software version, your warranty comes into there. You can make changes and updates to software, any notifications, some of the faults that have been popping up. We had a BMS comms failure between the all-in-one and the gateway, and that was due to plugging the data link cable into the wrong port, which is very common between those two products. We've got the eco mode enabled, which basically means it will make best use of your generation to charge and discharge the battery. You can do a time charge overnight, so if you're on those low cost tariffs of an evening, 11:30 till 5 in the morning typically, you can pop those in and make best use of that. You want to do a time discharge, that's where the battery will discharge itself, and any house loads that are running at that time can make use of it. The timed export is a little bit different. Rather than the battery covering the house loads, it just goes straight to the grid, and your consumption would be drawn from there as well. Your battery options, this is where you can dictate what reserve you want to keep, and that's a different conversation for every consumer. We've had some customers want to keep at least sort of 60%, one actually 80% where they have a lot of power cuts, and other people where they're just kind of happy to ride with it. If they happen to have a power cut when there's only 4% in the battery, that's just one of those things. But it's something to remember. If a power cut occurs and you've not got a lot of reserve in the battery because you've been making use of it, then you won't be able to run very long off grid. All your system data is in there as well for your inverter inputs and outputs and all the rest of it. We've currently got the solar just been turned on. You can see Matthew's popped that on over at site. I'm back at the office running the commissioning from the desktop, and he's out on site swinging switches and getting things online today. So he's just popped the solar on. You can see we've got 3.6 kilowatts of generation, which is nice, and we'll have a look in the TIGO app at that as well. So if we swing open the TIGO side of things, or TIGO, I always pronounce that wrong, I'm sure, you can see what's going on here with this install. So you get the temperature and weather forecast. Today there'll be 15 hours of sunlight and a cloud percentage of 55%. So that's useful information. This hasn't been updated for 15 minutes or so, so it's running behind, and this was before it was turned on, so the generation isn't actually displaying or reading anything yet, but that will update itself over time. If you pay for the premium version of the app, so I think if I go in here and show you premium, there is some subtle differences with what you get. So with the free version, it's basically just telling you what the watt hours is, what the power is, any reclaimed power. It updates every 15 minutes or so. You get your yearly, monthly and daily and 15-minute granular data, but they don't hold on to that for very long. So you've not got a big record to dig back through. You get production reports monthly, safety alerts and basic charts. On the premium version, you get all of that, but you also get voltage and current. It updates every minute. You get all of the data since it was incepted to current time. And there's the downloadable data and API access as well. So there is some subtle differences with that. If we go to the system view, you can see what we've actually got laid out on the roof. So we've got the string 1 and string 2, if you like, and they're split in this kind of arrangement. So we've got this side, basically one side of the chimney, and then the other side of the chimney, but with this top one here still on the A string. So 9 on each string. Oops, and we've got the receiver CCC in the garage along with the PV inverter. And as this collects data through the day, it will update in terms of what it's generated and any reclaimed power and such as well that you've managed to achieve. But because it's the free version, it's not super duper fast. I will do a refresh and see if it's updated. So yeah, you can see there actually we have had an update since it's been turned on. So we've got energy at the minute. You can see we've got flowing through these. So it's just starting to measure. And this is kind of a crude output. It's not instantaneous sort of peak power, if you like. So it's just saying what this has done in terms of watt hours rather than your actual power that's been pumped out at an instantaneous point in time. It'll make sense as you see it. Through the course of the day, you can basically see how much power each individual panel produced. And you can see already these two here, the side of the chimney, because the sun's sort of tracking this side of the roof. I don't know if you can see my cursor actually on the screen, but over to the right of the screen, that's where the sun's sort of tracking around the array. And yeah, the chimney's going to be covering those off. But it's interesting to see this top corner, B1, is nicely in the sunshine, and that's generating pretty well. So if we go back to the GivEnergy system, and we can have a look at the inverter data. So if we go into inverter data, you can get a bit more of an instant view of what's going on. So if you ask for information, it'll make a request to the equipment out on site, and then when it gets that connection, it will recover it. So you can see here at 1144, we've got voltage and power coming off the array, a couple of kilowatts. So it's dropped from 3.6 down to 2, and that'll no doubt be due to cloud coverage. But that's still nice production. It's 1145. We'll see how this one goes. It is shaded quite substantially from neighbouring properties and also the tree lines. But the consumers are very keen to get into renewables and using the sun to power their home. We've got 18 panels up there. I'm fairly confident we will see some good production over the course of the year. And it's going to be an interesting one to look at. That's the beauty of having the TIGO data, where you can get into things panel by panel level, and then the wide ranging view with GivEnergy. So if you go back into the main portal here and we open up the power graph for the day, you can see kind of what's going on daily, but equally your energy graphs. Once you've collated some data, you can really dive into this and swing on to like a yearly view, and you can see what's been going on month to month, week to week. You get a really good oversight of your entire system, both in terms of its generation, its consumption, and all the rest of it. So lots of information in there that's really useful for consumers. And all of this does integrate through API links. So if you're on and into your tech and you like messing around with home automation, I've forgotten the name of the actual package that people use. Yeah, I've totally lost the chain of thought, but you'll know what I mean if you know what I mean. So if you want to use those API link ups, you can do that and really transfer some of the data that these things are recording into that for you to look at. But let's get back to site and see how it's coming along. So I'm not sure how this is going to work with the audio because it is really windy. You see those trees up there? It is blowing like absolutely crazy. Hopefully it sounds okay. You can see what I mean about the shading. So it was, I'll put this section in after, but I've done some remote recording from the office, and this panel here was measuring loads less than the rest. And it's interesting because it's actually in shade from some next door, shading these bottom few panels, as you can see here. So we are going to have that problem as the sun moves around, but the rest of the array is in nice bright sunlight. The chimney now is just shading off to the top up there. If the scaffold wasn't here, the rest would be in sunlight. You can see off into the distance, the sun's nice and high in the sky. Now, once it gets around to autumn and winter, this is going to be shaded more and more often. So it's going to be interesting to see how it performs through those autumn and winter months. But it is what it is. Unfortunately, not everybody's blessed with perfectly south-facing, unshaded roof aspects, and you're kind of trying to make the best of the generation that's available to you. I think this come up really well. The guys have got the bird guard up the side, all nicely clipped. As I said before, that stench pipe's going to drop somewhere down here, we think. So that'll be out of the way. We've got all our end caps on. The array looks absolutely beautiful, and we're very, very happy with the result. It has got up to around 6-7 kilowatts already today, and I think it'll probably peak in the next hour or so. So we'll see and keep an eye on that. Otherwise, I think the guys have done another cracking job up here. It looks the absolute business. So I thought I'd quickly show you what's been going on with the system. This is as we are now, so at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've just done a refresh. Currently, this B6 panel, and this is quite interesting, so I just rung Matthew to ask him if there was a problem with that, and him and the customer are stood right in the line of the sun onto that panel. So that's how reactive it was in terms of getting a little update on what's been going on there. But you can see the rest of the array. The chimney's obviously shading this B9, so the sun's kind of towards the bottom of where A5 is, and it's scooting across, and that chimney's picking that up, and then the guys are stood in the way on that panel. Otherwise, top left is doing a little bit better than bottom right, and yeah, it's just shading off the neighbouring properties and trees through the course of the day, so you can kind of see that maps out with what's been going on. This bottom right is the one that performs less. It's the most shaded panel overall, and this one that's at the back of the chimney, the B9, so B9 and A5. But we'll see how that goes. It's its first time being switched on. To give you a more wider view of what's actually going on with the all-in-one monitoring side of things, you can see we've had a peak of around 6.5 kilowatts, and it's held around 6 kilowatts-ish for a good couple of hours, which is a nice sign. So that was from sort of 11 o'clock, we were 4.3, and just not too long ago, 1:50, we were, what were we, 5.7. So not bad for its first run out, and it is west facing, it is well shaded. We'll just see how it performs in the fullness of time, but the signs are good on that one. If I can learn to scroll properly, we can have a look. The EV charger is now in there, so that's all on and commissioned. And there's been a few people message on some of the other videos actually that the not charging your car function doesn't work on this, but it does. It's a case of setting it up correctly with the metering kit or through CloudSync. So if you go into your advanced mode, you can see we've got it on solar, and if we go into config, we've set the battery discharge power to the EV to 0, and we've got the solar export to the EV also set to 0. The consumer wants all of the solar to go to the house battery before the electric vehicle, and that's all done in there. You're where you would adjust your actual configuration. So if you were going into the other settings, and you can see on here you've got the charger configuration, and this is where you can go for standalone. If it's installed in that mode, it will still just drain your house battery. If it's standalone with PV, it will again just run away with the house battery too. You can use the CT meter, and this is where it can kind of monitor what's going on with the system and not discharge the house battery if the CT metering is set up correctly. And the inverter cloud control, this is where you get the cloud support, and you are definitely not going to be discharging that battery into your house battery into your electric vehicle. So that's the way you do it. Sometimes it's installer error, other times it's user error, so do make sure you are getting that sorted. And you can see that the EV charger is currently offline because the customer has turned it off because they don't yet have an electric vehicle, but it's all there and ready to go. So you can see at the main intake, we've got the gateway in as normal. We've covered these loads on the channel before. If you want to see and hear how those work, please do check out some of those prior videos. We're tucked away in the corner here. There is a redundant gas pipe. There's no longer gas connected to this property, so we do need to pop a bond on there. We've also got the TIGO rapid shutdown module on there, which gives us the monitoring and data from a panel by panel level as well. The grid supply comes into the gateway, and then the house loads connect off through that. The inverter's sat here with the DC isolators. And again, we've used some Flexicon on this. There was a lot of obstacles to work around. Setting up a trunking system in and amongst the existing consumer unit just was a non-starter. So we've gone for this approach in this case. I'm just trying to get the inverter to focus and getting a nice light. But even in the 2 or 3 hours of it running, we was picking up 11 or 12 units, which is no bad start to its first day generating. The Solax inverters are pretty bulletproof, and that will serve this consumer well for years to come. The EV charger runs off through the cable down the garage, and is then on this wall here where you can see the rendering, which is going to be chipped off, so that is going to come off the wall and be reset back at a later stage. But for now, it's there ready for anyone visiting the house to charge their vehicles up. It's tucked away nicely in that corner there for a really neat and tidy solution. And again, just running down the cable route here, nicely cleated away and then under into the gateway, connecting into that Proteus bidirectional RCBO. And that's us done, another home running on sunshine. I hope you've enjoyed a look through the installation process on this system, and also some of the data that can be extracted from the apps that work in the background behind it. The GivEnergy ecosystem is right up there with the very best. The user data, the operation of the system is super duper easy, and full credit to the development team at GivEnergy for getting that into place. These Jinko 440 panels are absolute beasts in terms of getting maximum generation to the light that hits them, and in combination with those TIGO optimizers, we've got full oversight of what's going on a panel by panel level basis. It's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. This is probably the most shaded aspect we've installed the solar system on so far. And there are plans potentially for a flat roof extension at the back of this property, which will be dead south facing, and hopefully we can maybe get a few panels onto there. And we've also got the east aspect on the other side of this roof, which is a much smaller pitch. This is kind of a dormus type bungalow, if you like, with a really steep pitch this side, but the roof the other side, there would just be enough room for one row of panels, and it is pretty extensively shaded by those huge trees. However, I did clock at the start of the video that the one, I don't know if you can see it, but there's one just behind me there that has been topped. So if this big one here takes a topping, that could come into play further down the road. If you've got any questions in and around this install, please do drop them in below. Any tips or tricks that we can use to improve our installations, equally get involved in those comments. And otherwise, we will see you on the next one.